Hello, welcome to Starlight Talks. I'm here this week with Ben, and we're gonna talk about development. I'm so excited for you guys to meet him. But in the meantime, check out autism.com and all of our great programs that are still available and all online now. Um, we've got the support group happening tomorrow night, game night on Friday, movie night on Mondays. Um, and yeah, all meditation. Um, um, that's still happening with Melanie. So yeah, sign up for all of that. We've got life maps still happening, mentorship still happening, parent coaching still happening. So there's a free 30-minute consultation, and then we always have scholarships. You just have to sign up, fill out the form for that. That's all on the website. So check out autism.com. I have my blogs up there where I write about living on the spectrum. And then, of course, Starlight Talks come back next week. I always have a talk on Wednesday at 7 Pacific Standard Time, so the time happening right now. And hopefully I'll have a new wonderful guest next week. This week I'm here with Ben. Hi, Haley. Thank you for joining again. I haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. I'm Ben Russell. I'm a psychologist. In 2004, I started a company called Real Connections Child Development Institute. And so I have been doing the DIR floor time and, other movement-based therapies. And we've done a variety of things over the years, working with children and some adults on the autism spectrum. So we're based in Monrovia, California, but we have satellites on the west side, in the Inland Empire, in San Diego, and in Orange County.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, you guys, please leave them. We love to interact with you. If you have any questions related to the topic or not, I know you guys always have really interesting things to say. So please get involved with our discussions. So we were going to talk first about how we got involved in the autism community.
Yeah, I studied psychology wanting to do wilderness therapy and be like a backpacking and camping guide, but come to it with this mental health approach, and be able to provide therapy to people in those kinds of settings. And I did my dissertation on spirituality and wilderness. And during my postdoc, I got a job doing floor time and working with children on the autism spectrum. And it just really fit for me. I enjoyed the work a lot. I made great friends with the kids that I got to know, and it connected with me. I have a real heart for social justice, and I saw a huge need for a different kind of work in the autism field from most of what I saw out there. I felt like we could approach autism with an approach of human dignity and science and understanding of development that could get better outcomes than what I saw in the field. And so I stayed in the field and just kept getting training, and started my own agency a couple of years later.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed at 16, so I missed the early intervention. And so people ask me all these recommendations, and I really like to recommend the experience. So I've been looking into stuff and really trying to talk to different programs that are for people who are younger. Because I mostly work with adults because that's the field that I'm in, and that's what I created with my sister. Because we had a very similar experience. Although we were autistic ourselves and searching out services and found none, and we were like, well, we wish something like this existed, and then we created it because it didn't exist. And so that's how autism came to be. And so that fight for services and that fight for, that meeting those needs is real, and that understanding of like listening to the autistic voice and accepting of like who they are and not trying to change them, instead like creating a space for them to be themselves. Like that's what we're all about. Like our message is the autistic person is the client. It's not the parent, not the caretaker, not, no one else has the final say on what they work on what programs they want. And they, because you need that buy-in in order to really progress in whatever you want to progress on. And so that was one of the really important things, because in a lot of the services, they, even as an adult or even as a teenager, they were looking to my parents for like, what should I be doing for them? And that was very belittling, and like I was like, why aren't you asking me? This service is for me. And so that was really important to me.
Yeah. Well, that's very affirming for our approach, and coming into the field with this passion for human dignity and seeing it as a social justice issue for people on the autism spectrum, for their voices to be heard, for their perspective to be understood, to begin to be able to educate families and teachers and society about what is autism, what is the experience or experiences, because there's so much variation of being on the autism spectrum. And as we were chatting earlier about color, I have so many clients that have like a particular color that like they just want every food, everything to be in that color, and that can be very irritating. And you can treat it with a behavioral approach, but if you understand what the experience is from the person, the child or the person on the spectrum of color, and how important it is in their day-to-day experience of the world and how they feel, then it can really shift your approach to be more of a listening, understanding approach. And so that's, we focus on a lot of parent training and collaborative work with the whole team, and bringing our clients onto the team to be able to speak their needs and listen. They, a lot of times, if they're not able to be as clear because they're younger about why something works or why something doesn't work for them, they're still saying it in their behavior. And so really taking behavior and obviously not accepting inappropriate behaviors, but listening to them as information about something's not working here. So it's not just that we stop the behavior, but we also listen to it and say, what is it telling us about what we have to adjust in the environment and the expectations and the support, so that they can feel more comfortable in their life and more successful in their life.
I love that. For some reason, I felt that after my diagnosis, that some of like my things that would have been clear if I was a neurotypical wasn't so clear, because I was selectively mute. But for some reason, with the neurotypical, like a meltdown or a tantrum or like crying means I'm sad and I'm upset. It means no. Where a lot of times with autism, that's not listened to in that way. It doesn't, for some reason, there's a lot of times that's not listened to as I'm upset right now, something's wrong. When that's like clearly what that message is. Like we crying because we're upset, because something's really bothering someone. And it's seen a lot as like a behavioral problem. And there's a lot of like trying to stop the meltdowns instead of finding out why the meltdown is occurring and fixing that so that it doesn't occur again. It's just like going, you can't melt down. Those are a lot of the messages I got, that I wasn't allowed to um, communicate in the way that I naturally wanted to communicate. Especially as a kid, that's a very natural way to communicate something without having all the language skills and not being nonverbal. It's like I can't say I don't like this, but I can start crying and you'll get the same message.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, you're expressing your feeling in that case, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the best that you can do to let somebody know. A lot of times, I think of it as kind of an undifferentiated state of being, and you may not have even been very clear on exactly what was upsetting you. Or, the kids that we see, I don't think that they necessarily know what's wrong. They can't say the lights are bothering me, or it's the dog next door
Mm-hmm.
that's bothering me, that it's, I hear the barking and it's scaring me, and I can't think, I don't feel okay. So without being able to recognize that, or articulate it, it's really difficult to identify, and it's frustrating for everybody. It's frustrating
Yeah.
for the parents or the therapists who just want their child to be able to be calm and happy, um, but it's this kind of undifferentiated state of dysregulation. And so a lot of the work too is just helping to be able to identify, like, what am I feeling right now? Where is this coming from? And having tools, and they can be very simple, visual communication tools, to start to be able to identify better what's going on. And obviously we can start to problem solve what are things that are calming and what are things that are dysregulating. We can look for the cues from the environment for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a parent, but I have pets and dogs, and I have had rats since I was in middle school. Like, obviously, they can't talk, but I've found, after like a few times of my dog being in a garage and melting down, I realized he has some PTSD that has to do with the garage. And so we've um, made sure he feels safe before entering a garage, or finding other ways to go around that. So like there can be like, it can take a while to learn it, but once I did learn like these are his issues, um, I take that into account. So like even without verbal communication, I mean, we learn things about people all the time, about, the animals around us, or, so there is a lot of communication that happens without saying, I don't like the garage. I learned that he doesn't like the garage.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And he wouldn't have probably known it was the garage either.
No.
Once he goes into the garage, he gets this, PTSD, or this feeling,
Yeah.
whatever's happening. Yeah. I love what you said, though, about making sure he feels safe
Yeah.
before going into the garage. So rather just saying, we're going to do this, we're going to like have extinction by, forcing you into it and getting used to it, or, giving you a behavioral technique so that you don't melt down when you do go into a garage, would create more tension and more fear in the system. Even, if your dog could manage the meltdown so they didn't melt down, their overall would be more of a constricted fear state, because then they're just holding that in. But to connect and to feel safe, and to use your relationship with your dog to help them be able to go through the garage and learn that, okay, that I didn't have a meltdown, and that was a better experience, because your dog's nervous system was actually able to stay calm based on the relationship and that sense of safety. And so safety and trust relationship is always the first step for anything, any kind of service that we provide or teaching that we do.
Yeah, we all have good days and bad days, so it's like easy to forget when you have like 10 good experiences, and then all of a sudden it's a bad day and you can't enter the garage when you could have entered yesterday. And so like remembering to pay attention. I mean, like, okay, today's not a day where we can do this, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And so making sure like it paying attention to him and not just like walking in. We might say, hey, we're doing this.
Yeah. Or if you forget, you always have the chance to stop right away,
Yeah.
recognize it. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, I feel that you're not okay today.
Yeah.
And take a deep breath, take care of yourself, because that can be irritating if it's interrupting your plan. But then instead of reacting, taking a breath, calming yourself down, connecting, and helping your dog feel safe, and seeing once you're connected, once you're helping them feel safe and knowing that you're connected to them, are they able to do it today or not? And then, listening to their response, their behavior.
Yeah, we got a question. I find environments like work and whatnot, even family life, can be difficult. I have meltdowns when I don't know how to explain what bothers me. I wasn't diagnosed till 27, so I often feel like I was just misbehaving or overreacting, just being dramatic. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm sure we both have thoughts, but happy to go first. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you got all those messages from your environment saying that you're being overly reactive or dramatic or misbehaving. The fact that it's hard to even, I mean, this is what I was speaking to a few minutes ago, understand, what's bothering you. I would start to pay attention in those moments, like, so you can do like what we're talking about with Chloe's dog. Chloe's able to recognize, oh, it's the garage. So you could start to do that for yourself. If you are recognizing, I'm feeling upset right now, take a moment to give yourself the grace to know your body's reacting to something that's going on, something that's real, and you may or may not be able to figure it out, but give yourself space to know that that's how you're feeling. When you feel that way, you're not always going to behave appropriately. You're going to start to be dramatic and have a meltdown, but just start to be curious about, where is this coming from? And is there anything that I can do right now to help myself? Try to take a deep breath. I heard that Chloe interviewed somebody recently about meditation, and meditation is one of the most I would say meditation and exercise are the two most powerful ways to calm down and to strengthen our nervous system to be able to manage more levels of stress. So see if some of that helps. And just continuing to day by day give yourself grace to relearn some of the automatic thoughts and beliefs that have been ingrained from other experiences.
Yeah. There's like something that Dr. Phil says, that like a negative is so much more powerful than a positive. So someone saying you're misbehaving will stick with you like 10 times more than someone saying, oh, you're behaving. So to undo it is going to take a lot more effort than how quickly it was probably done. And it's been done for 27 years. So that's to be patient with yourself, and to unlearn that negativity you probably put on yourself, and really be proud of yourself for the work that you do and that you're recognizing it now, and work toward that, as positively as you can. I like to do check-ins with myself on a regular basis. So starting out, I actually had a timer on my phone. I would say, okay, now check in and see how your body's feeling and what it's reacting to, because then you can catch it a lot earlier than the meltdown. You can start seeing, oh, I'm feeling slightly off right now. I don't know what it is, but I got to figure it out, because if I catch it now, it's a lot easier than if I'm like already on the ground, melting down, crying. But it's really hard to do, because I remember when I was little, I would say things like that noise hurts, and I remember like using these like specific words, and being like, oh, you're overreacting because other people don't experience physical pain from a noise. And so recognizing that even if other people around you are not experiencing it, it's still real for you. And just validating yourself in that and being like, okay, this noise bothers me or this kind of touch bothers me. And letting the people around you know, that's helpful too. Like right now, I feel like I'm a meltdown coming on. Just like that forewarning can be helpful too. So just having people around you can trust you can say that to them and know that they have your back. Those are all things I can suggest, and I hope that it all works out for you. Thank you for your question, Thomas. We got another long one from Miriam. What advice does Ben have on finding people to work with who actually understand autism? I keep getting therapists who say they work with people with autism, clearly have experience with working with people with autism, but at the same time do not understand autism and the terminology around it. As soon as we get into specific autism things, they do not know what to do and try to do more generic therapy.
Chloe, I can't hear you. I posted it in the host chat. I can, if people can hear me, I can respond to the question. I can see it, but I don't know how come I can't hear you, and I don't know if anybody can hear me.
Let me see. If I can play with the mic for a second. If I'm just turning it off and on again.
Okay, so you can hear me. I wonder if everybody can hear you, if everybody else can hear you or not.
Is it working now?
See if anybody responds.
Can you hear me now?
Hope that everybody can hear me. I can start to respond to the question.
Gosh.
So the advice that that I would give for finding somebody, well, there's a couple of things. So the program that we do is DIR Floor Time. There's a couple of agencies that train people. Okay, so good. I just can't hear. I just can't hear Chloe, but everybody can hear both of us, it looks like. So Perfectum.org and ICDL.com are a couple of websites where you can look up providers that have training in DIR floor time, that have an approach that you know that they have learned about autism, both from professional perspective and from listening to people on the spectrum and getting multidisciplinary training. So they're learning about sensory systems and the importance of sensory processing and sensory challenges within that training that they get. And there will be a variety of fields that professionals who have that background in the DIR floor time are from. The other thing I would say is to interview the professionals as you're selecting your next professional, to start to have some questions written down that you can talk to them to assess what is their understanding, how do they think about behaviors like we're talking about in this conversation. Do they approach them by kind of creating consequences? I mean, there may need to be consequences if a behavior is inappropriate and it needs to be stopped. There has to be some kind of approach to stopping the behavior, but respecting the person and helping them to be able to have alternate methods of communication or
I thought this would be a good way to talk.
Yeah, okay, I can hear you. It's good problem solving. I didn't even think of that. So hopefully we just don't get feedback on Facebook if they're hearing you through there and through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's
What I suggest with finding people with autism is make sure that there's autistic people involved in whatever program that you're looking at. They'll probably have a better understanding if they have consultants or they have people um, working with the program that are actually autistic themselves. Um, yeah, that's what I would suggest.
if I mute, then I think we can fix the feedback when the feedback starts.
You want to put on headphones? Yeah. Does anyone have any more questions?
Yeah, if I had headphones, my kids take all my headphones.
Oh gosh.
It's hard for me to keep headphones for myself around.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk about floor time?
I may be able to look and find some.
Okay. Ben is looking for headphones. Yeah, but so he if you weren't here at the beginning, he works with Floor Time, which is a DIR. Floor Time is a great program that works with mostly young ones, but also works with all ages with autism, and it's a option besides ABA, which I definitely would recommend over that. But yeah.
I don't have headphones, so I'll manage it with the mute button.
Do you want to talk about floor time? So do you want to talk about floor time?
Oh, talk more about. Yes. See how this works. Yeah, so floor time is, DIR is an acronym that stands for developmental, individual differences, and relationship based. And so the floor time is a model that uses those three principles to guide the work that we do, mostly with children, but I've applied it to a lot of work with adults as well. And it's really those principles you can apply not just with autism, but with general principles of human learning and development and mental health. So Stanley Greenspan and Serena Wieder did research in Washington, D.C. I believe in the 80s with toddlers, infants and toddlers, very young children, and mapped out social, emotional, developmental levels of functioning. And from infants, firstborn, through the first 4 years of life, there's certain emotional capacities that infants go through kind of in stages, and one leads into the other. And so then later they applied that work to some of their clients that they had on the autism spectrum, and found that they were able to be very effective with, rather than using a behavioral approach, to use a social emotional approach to support these developmental milestones to unfold. And as they did that work and had a lot of success with that work, they collaborated with occupational therapists and physical therapists and other professions to learn more about the impacts of the sensory systems. And so they had kind of the developmental research in the beginning, and then they added in the individual differences piece to like address the sensory differences and what they experienced in working with children on the spectrum. And at the core of the model was always the relationships, using the relationship to support this developmental unfolding of these milestones of communication, problem solving, self-regulation, and higher levels of symbolic thinking. So, and then the floor time approach is that there's a variety of techniques and strategies and interventions that all fit within the DIR floor time model. But one of the core pieces of it is to just play with your kids, which can be on the floor or not on the floor. But they called it floor time, and it's really spending quality time, being together, following the child's lead, and like you were saying, like listen to the child to see what is important to the child, and how are they saying this is what I need for my social development right now, and joining them and building interactions based on what they're presenting.
Yeah, what I like about floor time is, like, I believe milestones don't have a deadline. They do not have a deadline. You can meet them at any time, and floor time really believes in that. Where when I was in programs like ABA, especially now, it's that would have been, I don't know, 8 years ago now, maybe more. Um, can't do the math right now. That it felt like I was behind. Where when my parents looked at it more as you take your time to meet these milestones when you're ready, when you're prepared, and you take your time to do it, then I was able to do them much easier, and I didn't have pressure on me, and I didn't feel bad about myself. And so I know floor time has more of that look at things, where it's you do it in your own time, and you'll get there, but you just have to do it in your own way, in your own time. So I know there's a lot of people I talk to working with adults that have not moved out of their house yet and are beating themselves up because they want to live independently. You'll get there. Just work toward it. You don't have to move out when you're 18. You don't have to move out when you're 20. It's whenever that milestone is there when you need it. And culturally, milestones are so different in every culture. There's a lot of cultures where you never move out of your family's house, that you are always extended family all lives together. So it's just something we put on ourselves that doesn't need to be there. That there's a time limit. And so I like that floor time has a lot of those beliefs to it.
Yeah, I really like that approach, and I actually talk to parents all the time in my work about allowing the development to unfold, and turning it into a development into a race is counterproductive for long-term outcomes. The slower development is, I think, the better that the long-term outcomes of happiness and communication and feeling successful in the world are going to be. When we're trying to rush development, we rob all the opportunities for learning flexibility and adaptability in the world, and we get a system. When I say system, I'm talking about each one of us are information system. Our brain's nervous system is a system. So sometimes I use that word in kind of a strange way, but that's what I mean. So as a system, we can be very rigid and not adaptable if we are rushed in our development. But a slower development is able to understand and process more experiences. And that's why human beings are the most intelligent, and have the longest span of development. It's that slow down span of development that makes us more intelligent. And so it's actual counter to a positive developmental learning experience to try to rush it, but to take each individual, all of us, with where we're at, and support that place rather than jumping ahead of time. Now we can provide the supports in that place so that the system is ready to move ahead to the next phase of development, but to allow it to unfold according to natural human developmental stages, rather than seeing learning as a set of behaviors, or a set of skills, that don't, then we can get out of place if we're expecting skills, at a higher developmental level because of chronological age or because of some kind of checklist. Then that skill might not be right for where that person is at developmentally, and so that's where we really meet them. And it works. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and I really see that it works. And I'm often most encouraged in working with clients when I see a slow progression rather than a fast progression, because I know that client, that child, is in a developmental trajectory for the long haul that's going to continue. If I see that they have a good relationship with their parents are engaged in understanding their child and their child's sensory system, and they're making steady progress, then I know that that's going to continue. Over time, you said it yourself in your own experience, you get to those milestones over time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we were talking about motor control earlier. So I know that's an important topic to you. And I just did talk a couple weeks ago about my own experience with motor control, about how tying my shoes have been difficult, writing in school. I didn't write neatly enough, buttoning up clothes, all that kind of stuff can be really hard on my hands and very difficult to do. And so that's a lot of, I know a common autism experience is that kind of motor control. It's just different.
Yeah, so I'm gonna spend a very brief time getting a little bit sciencey again, so be patient with me, and I'll wrap it up quickly. But the research that's made the biggest impact on my thinking about autism and the autism supports that we provide as an agency is done by Liz Torres at Rutgers University, and is looking at motor control and fine motor control. And she's actually has wearable technology for her, the people that she's doing research with on the spectrum, to be able to look at the micro movements. So it's not a visual level of movement, but it's a micro movement. And it one of the things that shows is the amount of effort that's going into the movement. So like you were saying, that your own experience in like handwriting, tying shoes, is takes so much effort. Mm-hmm. And it's tiring because it takes so much effort, and every time it takes a lot of effort and a lot of control, and you still don't get as smooth a result as you're hoping for, and you see your peers developing, around you, and that effort is shown in the wearable technology that she has. And so, what she's finding is she can see the difference in movement quality between somebody on the spectrum, somebody that has more of an Asperger's profile, and somebody that's neurotypical. And she can actually see the spectrum and the quality of smoothness of movement at a micro movement level that's measured with these these wearable technologies. And she is able to provide a sensory substitute feedback to the system. So if the child wearing the technology can see their movement and can get feedback from the visual feedback through the computer about their own movement, then they're able to learn and map their movement and develop more smooth movement for the task that they're working on. And she can measure that because she's getting a physiological measure from the system. And then she can see the outcomes with the movement getting smoother. And then in follow-up, I think that she did her follow-up 2 weeks later, there was an increase in learning. So the brain had kind of picked up on, oh, this is what my hand movement feels like for this task. And in the 2 weeks in between the initial learning that happened and the follow-up, the brain had continued to pick up on that feedback and follow up on learning from that feedback. So she's actually able to show that she can kind of spark the brain to begin to feel the embodied experience more. And, that'll lead to better motor control, because this is where it gets really sciencey. Keep it to like 3 sentences, that there's messages that go from the brain to the body, and then there's messages that come back from the body to the brain about how did that experience go. And the messages that come back from the body to the brain have a higher noise ratio. They're noisy messages, more difficult for the brain to perceive and understand in autism. And so it's like if NASA, I live very close to the Jet Propulsion Laboratory here in Pasadena. And so if NASA's sending messages to the Mars rover and it's not getting very clear information back, is not able to refine the messages that it sends to the Mars rover to interact with the environment on Mars. And it does what it knows how to do, and when it gets a partial message back, it can learn something from that. But it takes a lot of very crude, well, this is what we're going to try because this is all that we know. But there's not a lot of learning that happens back and forth in between Mars and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And that's what it would be like if the messages that you're sending out to your body aren't coming back very clear. And that's where you end up getting a lot of the effort. So, what we've found is that the learning can happen, and not just through this sensory substitution, but also through an understanding that this is the difficulty. And so we slow down, we feel more, we help our clients pay attention to the feeling that they have more. We try more variations around movement, and help that experience get mapped in a slow way, like I was saying about development being slower before. Rather than rushing to learn to do something exactly right in terms of the motor control, we allow the messiness of development through different experiences and feeling different experiences, so the brain can learn to recognize the experience of its own body.
So Miriam asked, is there a place she can learn more about the specific work factors that you were discussing?
I'm also looking at the messages.
And Thomas asked, what do you do when you're not exactly in a situation where, now that you have a diagnosis that makes sense, the people that are in your main support system still think they don't have to adjust in any way? I live at home with my dad. Seems to think it'll kind of be trained out of me and I'll get more flexible. That's a really good question, because I don't think you can always expect the people around you to change and accommodate you or understand. And I think that in these kind of situations, you have to find a way to distance yourself from people like that, whether it's like an actual physical distance, like maybe moving out of your house, or creating an emotional distance where when he says things that bother you or does things that bother you, you're able to, take a step back and calm yourself down and take care of yourself by maybe going into a separate room or, doing what you need to help yourself. Because I mean, unfortunately, not everyone is accepting of people with differences from themselves and are going to make allowances for you, even if you have like the best explanation in the world. So finding a way to really take care of yourself and put yourself first in those situations, I think is the best thing you can do. I'm not hearing you. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was just going to add a couple of ideas in terms of how to communicate with your support system when they're not understanding, and to not necessarily put the expectation on them that they're going to understand, because that's going to take, and they may get there, that may be a slow process for them as well. But to be accepting, this is where they are, they just don't understand right now. But so the two things that I would suggest trying to remind yourself and internalize are to let them know how you feel and let them know what you need. And if they can't respect those things, definitely find ways to take care of yourself by having space. And that might be one of the things that you need to communicate that you need is you need space. You need to be able to use your tools that help you calm down, help you get into a better place. And it can be really helpful to practice writing if you're able to express some of your thoughts with writing more clearly, or just practice how you might want to express them. It's a really powerful way to learn about yourself too, is just through journaling. There's a lot of research that journaling is helpful for a lot of depression and anxiety and frustration management. So you might be able to express some of those feelings and some of those needs in writing. But just practicing, just staying with that in terms of the communication to the caregivers.
So Marian asked if there are
Yeah,
places
so I can respond to this question. Can see, I don't know if you're going to have links, or I can get it to you if there's a way for me to
I can
post it somewhere. But Elizabeth Torres is the researcher, and she has a website through Rutgers, her research lab at Rutgers University, that has information and articles. She's written a lot of articles. She's edited a couple of books and has written chapters in those books, and it's really fantastic information. I mean, she's a super intelligent scientist, so she's writing it as a scientist researcher. But one of the things I love about Liz Torres is her passion for social justice and her own story of getting into the field. So I would highly, if you Google, when I'm trying to look up her work, I just Google Elizabeth Torres autism, and then pops up with a few different options of ways to access her work.
So those are all the questions that I'm seeing right now. We have about 10 minutes left, so if anybody has any last questions, please feel free to leave them. I'd like to remind you, on artism.com, we have all these wonderful programs that you can sign up for. We have support group tomorrow, game night Friday, movie night Monday, and meditation with Melanie. Yeah, so sign up for, I think they're $10 each session. And then we have our bigger programs that are like one-on-one with different experts in different parts of the field. There's the parent coaching, there's life map, and mentorship. And I love working with you guys that are my mentees. It's been so fun watching you guys really just start coming out of your shell. And because I know like it's been really tough right now with everything going on. And so just having someone to talk to who relates to, you know, the autism world. Yeah, I wish I had that when I was younger. So I created a program for it. So I'm here. I've been there. And so I totally understand. And I'm here to listen. I'm here to help in any way again. And we have some wonderful other mentors as well that would love to do the same thing. And we have a few new life map coaches that just joined the Autism family because so many people requested it. So, and then obviously come back next week. I do the Starlight Talks every Wednesday at 7 Pacific Standard Time. Man, this week I was here with Ben, and we were talking about development and floor time and motor control and so many fun things. Yeah, did you have a parting message for everyone?
Yeah, I wanted to thank you for what you're doing. One of the things that I make the recommendation for to people on the spectrum and to their families is to find safe spaces to be on the spectrum and to feel like you can be yourself. I'm a strong advocate for inclusion, but I think that it's also important to have autistic spaces that are safe autistic spaces, and it looks like you're creating that, and it's wonderful. And yeah, I'm so impressed with your ability for us to figure out, I don't know what happened with the technology, but with the technological difficulties, we're able to work together and still make it happen. So good job. I'm impressed. I'm sorry I didn't have headphones. I have to figure that out with my kids, obviously. And then the last thing was, I just wanted to commend Thomas for bringing the water and figuring out a way to do that, and that is like a lot. That's great. It shows your problem solving, your compassion, and you're wanting to engage. And I just thought that was a wonderful story that you shared, and I think that's all that you need to do if that's what you're able to do. And if you feel like you want to do more, maybe you will. But just really to appreciate that. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you everyone for watching, tuning in this week. I think that with everything going on right now, it's just amazing that everyone's still around and still participating in life and still doing things like this. So I hope to see you guys next week. I hope to see you at other events and in my support groups and stuff like that. Yeah, thank you for joining, Miriam and Haley and Alex and Thomas. You guys are have been coming regularly now to these live streams, and that's really cool to see you guys and getting to know you. Yeah. So stay colorful, everybody. Goodbye.